This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting on July 26th at 6:15. Sorry, 6 o'clock. Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mr. Weeks, do you mind reading this week's announcements?
With pleasure. Announcements. Impressed LLA would like to invite interested Hanson residents to a community outreach meeting for a proposed marijuana establishment. This meeting is scheduled for Friday, August 6th at 3 p.m. at the Hanson Library at 132 McQuon Street. The proposed adult use product manufacturing license is anticipated to be located at 15 Commercial What in Hanson. This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions. We are looking for 2 citizens at large to become members of the newly revitalized Bylaw Review Committee. Volunteer applications may be found at the town website, www.hanson-ma.gov, or by calling Greer in the Selectmen's office at 781-293-2131. Volunteers are also needed on the following committees: Facebook Upkeep Committee, Capital Improvement Committee, Conservation Commission, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Highway Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, and Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committee. And we have upcoming meetings: Board of Selectmen, August 10th, 2021 at 6 p.m., and Board of Selectmen, August 31st, 2021 at 6 p.m.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Weeks. And just in case, I believe it's Impress LLC, not
It is
LLL,
LLC.
right?
It is LLC.
And it's at 15 Commercial Way in Hanson. So I just, that's going to be on Friday, August 6th at 3 p.m. I just wanted to make sure that it was correct, just in case there was a technicality in reading these things off. So I'm just going to jump around on the agenda real quick. Chief Mix with our police department is here. He had a couple of things that he would like to ask the board of.
Sure why it's stuck to the floor. Good evening, thank you. This will be quick. 2 things are going on. I'm going to start with, first off, to let you know that Officer Kevin McCarthy, who's been a full-time police officer for 22 years here in Hanson, he's retiring. And in true Kevin way, he's retiring Saturday. So he wanted no fanfare, he wanted no accolades, he wanted nothing. He just wants to retire and go quietly into the night, as he said. So we're going to allow him to do that. However, I did extend the offer to him to stay on, as we have with most retirees, to stay on as a part-time or special police officer, so that they can do details or help us out with, big events and storms and whatnot. So the first thing I would ask the board is if somebody would make a motion to allow Kevin McCarthy to be appointed as a special police officer in the town of Hanson, and that would be effective August 1st.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Oh, I didn't know I could make the
Oh.
motion.
No, you're saying it, but we're
As long as we
moving.
move it, you're good.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
So I have to abstain because he's technically family. So should I abstain from that?
There's no financial impact, so I don't think it'll be a big deal.
Because I'd be honored to make the nomination, given that he's family.
Well, we already made the nomination,
And
so you
vote,
gotta get on board.
and vote. So I
Just to
would
be on the
say,
safe side,
Yeah.
I would abstain.
Yeah.
thank you, appreciate it.
You can take part in this next one, then.
Absolutely.
So, as you know, and I'm just a quick history for people asking, because it seems like I've been trotting in front of you hiring people. Go back a couple of years ago, we voted to go to regional dispatch. As part of going to regional dispatch, we lost the 5 civilian positions, 5.5 civilian positions. And in turn, we were gonna put on 4 full-time law enforcement officers to keep the station open. We were going through a process, and some of you may remember, and I know Mr. Weeks, you weren't here, but I started a program where we were hiring people part-time, training them, letting them work, and seeing if they fit in and put them out in the street, if they did, and send them to academy. With police reform happening, and with COVID, and with the financial issues we had a young man that's been on the list with us since last September. He was the next one up. He was gonna come in as a part-timer, but given his full-time job and currently in law enforcement and our situation with COVID, we didn't bring him in at that time. With Officer McCarthy leaving a little sooner than planned, I have the opportunity now to put this gentleman, this new potential officer, in September Academy, or at latest a November Academy in Randolph. So September Academy would be in Plymouth. So I'm shooting for that. And again, he's somebody that we established a list from over 40 candidates almost a year ago. And I would have been in front of you, 9 months ago with this, but circumstances were different. That being said, I'll give you a little rundown on the candidate. His name's Ryan Shaughnessy. He grew up in Bridgewater. He worked down at high school as a diesel mechanic, had an interest in law enforcement, became an EMT. He put himself through a part-time police academy, so I can start working him soon, even with the reform. And also, he is currently a Plymouth County Sheriff's Department deputy and a correctional officer. So he's been through the Plymouth County Corrections Officer Academy, as well as a part-time police academy. So I would not see him having any problems getting through the full-time police academy if we can get him into September or November. He's been working over at the Sheriff's Department for 3 years, both inside in the jail and also in transportation. The little bit of background we did do on him, that checking around, I've gotten nothing but positive comments from the Sheriff's Department on him as a hard-working young man. Matter of fact, he came in to see me this morning because I wanted to discuss this with him again, and he came in after being ordered in on a 20-hour shift. So I said, why didn't you tell me and go home and go to bed? And he says, no, we had an appointment. So, that says a lot about the kid, I think, too. So that being said, if the board is willing, how about if I read this? Or you want to read it? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that Ryan Shaughnessy be appointed as a student police officer effective September 20, 2021, upon the successful completion of the academy. Student Officer Shaughnessy will be appointed as a full-time officer in the town of Hanson. Officer Shaughnessy appointment is contingent upon successfully passing a medical exam, psychological exam, and a background check.
Do I have a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Chief.
very much. I can't
Thank
say
you.
how excited he's going to be, and it really helps us keep moving along. So thank you.
Great. Excellent.
Chief.
Next on our agenda is fiscal year 19 and 20 audits. Mr. Soretti, do you mind coming to the podium and giving your presentation?
Thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to present the results of the fiscal 2020 audit to you. I'd like to start off by thanking the town accountant, treasurer collector, and the rest of the finance team for all the cooperation and assistance that we received during the course of the audit. This was a very different year for us, just from a protocol standpoint with COVID. It was our first year auditing the town. And so that presents some challenges in itself. But having to do the audit remotely also presented some other challenges. But fortunately, we've had a secure portal set up for our clients for a number of years. Our clients have been utilizing that, and that was in place, which was great because it made it easy, and it was a secure way to transfer files back and forth. And so the town was extremely cooperative about getting us the information that we needed electronically and loading it up on that portal. And we've had no issues getting the information that we needed. There was a little bit of time needed to get it into electronic format in some cases. But We got through everything, they got us everything we needed, and we really didn't have any issues as a result of having to do the audit remotely. And we're also able to use technology like Zoom and be able to have, meetings like that where we could be face-to-face, even though we couldn't be in person. So it worked probably, about as good as it possibly could have, considering that we were kind of learning how to do it on the fly. And so we were really happy with the way the audit went and the whole remote process. And like I said, we had great cooperation from the whole finance team and everyone, so that really worked out as well as it possibly could have. The overall results of the audit were that we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's the best opinion you can get. It means your financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. All the reporting deadlines that we had were met. The information that we received was accurate. We didn't have to post any correcting entries. We didn't have to propose adjustments to fix errors in your financial statements. So that's a really good sign for you when you're getting information throughout the year. You know that you're getting accurate information. And so that was really good to see. And like I said, the information we received was accurate. We had timely responses to our inquiries. And we didn't identify any deficiencies in internal control that we would consider to be a significant deficiency or a material weakness. If we had, we would have already brought that to your attention, and we would be required to put that in writing to you. One of the biggest risk areas in the audit for us is always cash, because cash is highly susceptible to theft and fraud. And so we always look very thoroughly at cash, and we make sure that there's good reconciliation procedures in place, that it's being reconciled on a monthly basis. And what we found was that's exactly what was happening. There's good reconciliation procedures in place. We found the bank reconciliations to be complete and accurate. We were able to verify all the reconciling items that were on the bank statements. So that's always great to see. If your cash is reconciled and in good shape, the audit just tends to go smoothly. And if it's not the case, then it's the other way around. So that was great. We test a lot of transactions. We test expenditures, revenues, payroll. We look at journal entries, make sure there's proper support. We found that there was proper support and that the transactions were approved and by whoever was supposed to approve the specific transactions that we were looking at, that was all done, that the transactions were coded properly on the ledgers, they were charged to the right accounts, so there weren't things that we were finding that were in the wrong places. There was good supporting documentation, so we didn't find any issues. We found, what we would hope to find is that, people were following procedures and proper documentation was in place and all of that. So no issues there with any of the transaction testing that we did. And now I can get into some financial highlights. I was looking on the Department of Revenue website, and it looks like you had been a AA3 credit rating from 2010 to 2019. And then it also looks like you were upgraded to a AA2 in 2020. So that's a really great thing for the town, better rates. Means that you are doing things right, you're doing things well, that the rating agency saw fit to raise your rating. And they look at things like, your reserve balances. Do you have adequate reserves? Do you have financial policies in place? Do you have competent people working in the positions in your town hall? How are your debt ratios, demographics? They look at a whole host of things, and looking at the town, they felt that it warranted an increase, so that's really great for the town. Free cash, your free cash was certified at $2 million. That was a $300,000 increase from the prior year. So that's great. You're building up some excess reserves there for unexpected or maybe capital or whatever your plan is. I'm not sure exactly what your plan is for your free cash, but you did build up your balance by $300,000. Those are the things that it typically gets used for. Your general fund unassigned fund balance totaled $5.1 million. That was about 19% of your budget. And that includes your general stabilization fund, just because that's the way GAAP requires it to be presented. And the rating agencies like to see that reserve level between 10 and 20%. So you're up there, so you've got good reserves, which is great, and I'm sure that played into your increase in your bond rating. Your general stabilization totaled $1.3 million, and that was increased by $106,000, so you're able to accumulate some more money there too, which is great. And your school stabilization fund was $162,000, and that also increased by $66,000. So right across the board, you were able to build up your reserve balances a little bit more, which is puts you in a healthy financial position. And your collection rate is about 98%, which is a very good collection rate on the real estate and personal property taxes. COVID-19, you didn't have a lot of expenditures related to it, but in fiscal '20, you spent $47,000, and you got reimbursed $47,000. It was mainly for first responder salaries, PPE, cleaning, disinfecting, and ambulance services. I think you're most likely going to have more than that, going forward with the additional funding that's available. General fund budgetary results, you had a $653,000 surplus for your general fund budget. Your revenues had a surplus of $781,000. And that was mainly due to your motor vehicle excise and tax liens. Tax liens are not budgeted, but your motor vehicle excise came in good. Expenditures were about $1.1 million under budget, and that was kind of across the board. General government was $193,000 under budget. Public safety, $453,000. Education, $134,000. DPW, $193,000, and employee benefits, $93,000. And all these results are an indication that you have a good, sound budget process and that you have good budgetary controls in place. Community Preservation Fund, on a budgetary basis, your fund balance was $2.1 million. That was a $257,000 increase from the prior year. You had a revenue surplus there of $32,000, and your expenditures were $190,000 under budget. And I think that's probably just due to timing of projects. Water operations, on a budgetary basis, which is how you maintain your books, your fund balance was $1.6 million. That was about a $157,000 increase from the prior year, mainly due to unexpended appropriations. But your rates seem to be set at a good rate where they're covering costs, and it's never a bad thing to build up some extra reserves in there for other capital repairs, maintenance, and capital items that might be coming down the road. And that takes me to OPEB, your OPEB liability. The town has been contributing $25,000 a year now into an OPEB trust. The balance at the end of the year was $133,000, so you're starting to build up a balance in there, which is great, and I'm sure the rating agencies like to see that you've adopted the trust and you've started funding it. Your net OPEB liability was $19.6 million. That was a $900,000 increase from the prior year, and that's mainly due to a decrease in the discount rate. And so the way the discount rate works is if you're fully funding, then you get your long-term expected rate of return, which is probably about somewhere in the 7s. But if you're not funding at all, you have to use the AA municipal bond rate, 20-year municipal bond rate, which was 2.66% at June 30th. But where you're funding, you qualify for what they call a blended rate. And so instead of having to use that low 2.66 rate, you were able to use 3%. And that's going to change each year until you get to a fully funded rate, because that AA municipal bond rate goes up and down each year depending on what the economy is doing. And so when that rate goes down, your liability goes up, unfortunately. And so that did cause the majority of the increase in your liability, but it wasn't that significant. Net investment income, you earned $3,000 on the money that's in the trust, and you were 0.67% funded at the end of the year, whereas last year you were 0.56% funded, so you made some progress there, getting up towards 1% funded. If you have the financial statements in front of you, I'd just like to show you something really quick on page 52. It's called a sensitivity analysis, and so there's one at the top of the page that relates to the discount rate, and the one right below it relates to the healthcare trend rate. It's really the one that relates to the discount rate that I wanted to show you. So what this shows you is what the effect of a 1% change in the discount rate on the OPEB liability will have. And so you can see 3%, which is the current rate, your liability is at 19.585 or 19.6 million. And if you decrease that rate by 1%, the liability would actually go up by almost $3 million. And on the other hand, if you increase the rate by 1%, the liability goes down by about $2.5 million. So that discount rate has a really huge effect on your liability. And so as you keep accumulating money in your trust fund, you're gonna keep qualifying for a higher and higher discount rate, and that's gonna drive down your liability. And so that's another one of the benefits to, funding it and building up money in your OPEB trust.
Ms. Kement?
Yeah, Mr. Sardi, I mean, 0.67% seems extremely pitiful in the face of a $19.6 million liability. And I know we're not alone in this. It's the elephant in the room for a lot of municipalities and government agencies. But, are you seeing others getting more aggressive about trying to fill that gap? Is that something you guys, would recommend that we look at, that we view, that we work with town accountant to take a look at? Are there any action items around that, I guess, in short?
I mean, each town is different. We're definitely seeing a trend where more and more are starting to, fund it more and more. And, there are still some that haven't set up a trust, even some bigger
Oh, wow.
cities that haven't got going on it. And, there's different schools of thought about, how they want to fund it. Like I've heard some plans where they're going to wait until their pension liability is fully funded in 2040 and then start shifting some of that money and maybe kind of fund at a modest rate until they get to that point. It's really, I don't know if you've had conversations with your actuary about it, but he can really give you some different scenarios of, what you could do if you're interested in maybe trying to put some more money in. And he can, let you know how much money you would need to contribute to get up to a certain discount rate, those types of
We
things.
have never had a conversation with our actuary. Todd maybe, but I don't think we have. Maybe that's something we
Yep,
could
that's on
think
the,
about.
I just made a note of.
Yeah, you have a really good actuary too. I know he does a lot of that, and I'm sure he'd be happy to do it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Another page that you could flip to, page 63, if you just want to see a little bit better illustration of that 67%, is, this is a schedule that is going to eventually be a 10-year schedule. It's going to have 10 years' worth of information on it, but it's just getting built as, since the GASB was implemented. But you go to the June 30th, 2020 column, you can see the total OPEB liability of $19,718,118. And then as you come down, you can see your planned fiduciary net position, and then you can see your total planned fiduciary net position, $132,744. So those are the total assets that you have in your trust. And you can see the $25,000 that got put in. You can see the $3,000 of income that went in, and the other contributions. And then there's the calculation at the bottom that takes the fiduciary net position as a percentage of the liability. And then you can see the prior year, it was 0.56. The year before that, it was 0.49. And it was 0.19 the year before that. So you're working your way up towards 1%. Because it's not somewhere, right?
Ooh.
Is that it for OPEB?
That's all I had, yeah. I
Yep.
mean, yeah.
Next thing was the net pension liability. The town's part of the Plymouth County Retirement Association. The town's share of the liability with Plymouth County is $14.4 million as of 12/31/19. That's the liability that gets reported in your 6/30/20 financials because they're on a calendar year. That liability actually went down by $856,000. And the retirement system is 62% funded, and that's an increase of 6% from the prior year. The only thing to note on that is that they're using what's considered to be now a high discount rate, 7.875%. A lot of the communities are closer to 7, and some are even below 7. And so by, using a higher discount rate like that, you're essentially lowering the liability, lowering the contributions, and those decisions are all made at the retirement system, so.
You on the Plymouth, aren't you the one on the Plymouth County Retirement Board? Yeah, all right.
Another thing I wanted to mention was that you did a current refunding in fiscal 2020. You refunded some debt that became callable on the police station, and that saved the town $124,000. So that is always great when you can do that. And you issued some new debt in the Water Enterprise Fund, $2.8 million for water tank rehab, water mains, and some water meter projects. And you had some short-term debt too, $550,000 for a fire engine and $600,000 for McQuon Street rehab. And your general fund debt service is at 2% of your total expenditures. That's a little bit on the low side from what we typically see. Usually it's closer to 5%. It's kind of like the rule of thumb that we go by, but, I mean, if you're doing things without debt, I guess, there's something to be said for that from a conservatism standpoint. I'm not sure, I haven't read your rating report. I'd be curious to see how they commented on that, if they felt that that was, a good rate for you or not, but it does seem a little bit low from what I see in other communities. And those were really the things that I wanted to highlight in the financial statements. I can take any other questions related to the financials, or I can move on to the management letter, whatever you like.
Any questions from the board? Ms. Green, Greer, any questions? All right, management letter next would be great.
Okay, great. I always like to start off with this by mentioning that it's critical in nature. It doesn't highlight the things that are done well, and there's a lot of things that are done well. But what's important to note about it, and I mentioned it before, is that there's no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in this letter. These are things that we consider to be more of like improvements or efficiencies to try to provide some value-added comments that will help you to maybe strengthen some controls or maybe be a little bit more efficient or something like that. So we had 3 new comments this year. One was related to a delay in posting Board of Selectmen meeting minutes. When we were wrapping up the audit, they were about 5 months behind on the website. And it's my understanding that they're, working to get caught up, and that, had something, the pandemic had something to do with that. And, but typically, generally, they're usually posted within like 30 days after the meeting, and so that's a good goal to try to shoot for, and I know that they're working towards that. Next comment related to adopting a cash and investment policy. And so one of the accounting standards requires you to disclose in your financial statements what your cash and investment policy is if you've adopted one. And if you have not adopted one, then you have to disclose that as well. You have to say that, the town has not adopted a investment policy related to custodial credit risk or interest rate risk. And it's just a good prudent thing to do to have that policy. It gives the treasurer some guidelines to follow related to what kind of banks you want them to be investing in, what kind of insurance you want them to have on the money. Do you want everything covered? Do you want full FDIC coverage? Do you want to then go for DIF coverage, which will pick up where the FDIC leaves off? And if there's anything else left over, if you don't have DIF, then you might go for some collateralization, which would cover the rest of the balance. Like, those are some of the things that you address in the policy. And so that's something that I understand that there's a draft, and they're actually expecting to present it to the board. For all I know, you may have already voted on it. But I think that there's at least a draft out there, and there's intention to have that adopted soon. And once that's done, then we'll go in and update the footnotes to indicate what your policies are. If we looked at them right now, they'll say that the town has not formally adopted an investment policy. Next comment relates to the ambulance receivable. The ambulance receivable balance totaled $818,000. It's a pretty large balance for an ambulance service in a town this size, and it's not uncommon. We see it a lot, that there tends to be a lot of uncollectible accounts in these ambulances receivables, just because of the way they're billed.
Yeah.
But it's good to have a practice where you're periodically reviewing the outstanding receivable balances to see how old they are, to make sure that you have a good process to try to collect them, and that's being followed. And of the 818,000, 234,000 is greater than 3 years old, and some of them date all the way back to 2015. So there's more than likely a good amount there that you would probably consider uncollectible if you really went through it. And it just, if you stay on top of that, it just makes it a lot easier to manage. Now, where you haven't done it in a while, it's just a bigger undertaking to do it. So we recommend that you try to get maybe like a quarterly process or something like that to review it, and maybe like an annual write-off or something. And when you go through that quarterly process, you can check and make sure that, bills are being sent out, that, there's trying to collect on them if, it still seems feasible to collect them.
And excuse me, but is that our treasurer collector that's supposed to be collecting the outstanding ambulance fees? I just don't, I literally don't know. I
Fire
would've-
department does it. Barbara does it.
Pardon?
Barbara does it.
Oh, Barbara does it, okay, all right. Should we have some involvement from our collector treasurer, whose job it is to collect overdue amounts?
Certainly talk to her about it, absolutely.
I mean, obviously, if Barbara's like the first line of defense, but like if we don't get something back, it seems like it would be a little bit over Barbara's pay grade, I think, to turn into a collection agent. That's just my opinion, but,
Certainly talk to treasurer collector about it.
okay.
Can I just say, I think some towns hire, they contract out, is that correct?
Yep.
And they tend to have, this is what they do for services, and they tend to have a higher rate of collection.
So they shop out the entire process, or just if it's not immediately paid type of thing?
I honestly, both, it can be either.
Okay.
Yeah. What, could you name some,
Comstar is one that comes to mind.
Comstar?
I think that's the only one I'm gonna come up with at the moment.
I mean, first I gotta look and see what the delinquency rate is, if there is, before you just hire a collection company.
Yeah.
There's a lot more involved in it before that. We talked about it before.
And Comstar, and I know that there's at least one other company out there that specializes in it, so I think that they've got some expertise to look at them and to try to help you
Yeah.
determine, things that may be collectible or may not be collectible.
Okay.
And then there were 3 prior year comments. I wasn't planning to spend a lot of time on these, but there was one related to conducting a fraud risk assessment. And my understanding is that the town is still, giving this consideration and is thinking about hiring a consultant to do this in FY '22. And that's really just taking a look at different areas within the organization where there might be risk of fraud or theft, and taking a look at what controls are in place, and then doing an assessment to say, okay, are we satisfied with the controls that we have in place, or do we feel that we should strengthen controls a little bit to, make this a little bit more secure? And that's really what that process is all about. And I would say that most of our clients do hire an outside consultant to do it. It's just, finding the time to do it when you're trying to do everything else. It's just, I think, hard for people to fit into the day-to-day, and that's typically what we see. Next one was develop a fraud prevention policy. And, that's another important thing for the town to have, just to make it clear that, the town doesn't tolerate fraud. They're not going to tolerate fraud, and, that there's mechanisms in place to deal with it. And it's my understanding that, this was expected to be completed in '21. I'm not sure the current status of it or not, but if it wasn't completed in '21, I assume it's going to be completed soon thereafter. But I think that that's an important one, too. And then the-
Excuse me, but this board has not talked about either one of these things that were from our 2019. Is there anything in progress on either one of these that we're not aware, or that the board isn't aware of, or?
Not
Okay.
that we know of,
Not that I
no.
know.
Okay. So can we cue that up?
Nope, it's on my to-do
Your
list.
ever-increasing
Yeah,
list.
yep, so.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last comment related to the highway department, and basically formalizing the new procedures and controls that have been put in place related to time and attendance and how they track it, how they, sign off on it and verify it. I understand that the previous town administrator worked pretty closely with the director over there, and they came up with new processes and procedures. However, it hasn't been documented, and I think that it's important to get that documented so that that can be handed out to the employees over there and say, here you go, here it is in writing. This is how you document your time and attendance and your overtime and whatever else. And that was it for the management letter.
Perfect, great, thank you very much. Any questions from the board?
Oh, this was great, very thorough, gives us a lot to think about.
Really appreciate the time.
I guess, I'm
Mis-
sorry,
Mr.
Chair,
Hickey.
The only question I would have, I guess, is that with the comments at the end, from 2020, you had 3 different things that we needed to work on, and you actually made the comment about the second one that we may have already looked at it and voted on it. I actually forget I was concentrating more on what your answers were than what the actual problem was.
I think that, let's see.
Adopting the cash and investment
Investment
policy?
Yeah,
Okay, because it hasn't come across us yet,
okay.
but, you know, with like the meeting minutes, those were handled, you were told how they were gonna be handled. With the number 2 thing, you know, we're in the process of getting that done. And up until we had talked about hiring an outside firm on the 3rd one, there was really no input. And I was hoping that there would be input on the paper instead of, you know, trying to get it out of you sitting at the table. I mean, obviously, I left my papers at home, in my other briefcase. But, is there an opportunity, for the town to call you back,
Absolutely.
if we have other questions?
Yeah.
Because
You have my business card. I think I left one for you. I think I left one for
Okay.
everybody. If you didn't get one, I can.
yeah, I'd
give you
like
one.
to, oh, is that mine? Yeah, Kenny has always taken my stuff. That's why I actually have my seat moved.
On that one, the
But,
investment policy that it's drafted, and my understanding was that it was, you know, going to be presented to you, and whether or not it ever made it there, I guess I don't know the answer to that one.
and that's okay. I mean, I think, you know, Laura had asked a couple of questions, and it makes sense. 'Cause even with the minute meetings being so far behind, when I read them, thank you. When I read them, I was looking at what we said we were going to do, and if it was done.
Right.
So, I mean, I really reviewed those minutes. So, I mean, you know, when I go home, you know, you may get a call, if that's okay, by the end of the week from me.
Yeah, no problem.
Just so that I can follow up on exactly what was said and how we proceed to get that fixed, so that you're not coming back here next year saying, I told you guys last year in 2019 that you needed to do this, and it's still not done.
I agree, Jim. I'd really like to see us have a little project plan or action plan or something to address every single one of the things that he mentioned from 2019 and 2020. Because it's clear that although some may have known about some of these findings, the 5 of us, well, you weren't here, but anyway, the 5 of us did not know about those or any actions that were taken, and we need to know about them.
Yep. So, nope, I have this, I actually have all the action recommendations written down for a future agenda in the future. So, so I think that'd be great, Jim, if you want to follow up and then
Yeah.
become a little bit more knowledgeable about everything, and then I think maybe work with you
Sure.
to move forward.
Great.
So,
I just wanted to say thanks, because I was, you know, the only thing better than audit talk is accounting talk, but you actually made it interesting,
Oh, thank you.
you know, and I mean, obviously,
Really put people to sleep, so that's
right.
good to hear.
But, you know, it just made it interesting enough to actually get involved and find out the answers. So, I mean, I appreciate you and your firm putting the work into this, and I will
We
definitely
appreciate,
follow up.
you know, you
Thank
guys
you.
hiring us to be the town's auditors. We look forward to working with you for, you know, hopefully many years to come.
Great,
thank you
thanks.
very much, Mr. Soretti.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You as well. So next item on the agenda is discuss adopting special legislation to allow the town administrator to sign all one-day special liquor licenses. So I was, last week, or the last couple of weeks, it just seems that us meeting bi-weekly isn't sufficient enough to get one-day liquor licenses signed off on. So what I would like to do is see if the board would entertain a motion to allow Kate, our town council, to draft special legislation for town meeting to allow the town administrator to sign off on one-day liquor licenses.
I mean, so moved. I think it's a great idea. It's very ministerial. It's not like we really have a discussion about it. We're
Right.
just signing, you know, we get the paperwork from the Camp Kawani guys, and, you know, they're listing what type of event it is, and they're using a prescribed liquor, you know, bartender. There's not a lot of variety,
Right.
you know, so.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Jim, you have a comment?
Discussion?
Yep.
Sure. I think it's a great idea. The only thing I don't like about it is when they're late. When we sign a liquor license on July 15th, and the event was July 11th.
I think that's what triggered Matt to look at
Yeah.
this, because we were doing retroactive, which
Right,
makes
yeah,
no
it's-
sense.
it's
We
crazy, so.
spoke with
And
Dory.
just so folks know why, I mean, I kind of say, go ahead with the retroactive licenses. You have someone's wedding or a baby shower, and they're not thinking about these little things, or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to ruin someone's a day just because it didn't get to us in time. So the big thing is making sure that, we serve the public and we know about it and sign off on it. And as Laura said, there's really no discussion on it, so that's why I accepted those couple retroactive licenses, and I want to try to attend to them. So with that being said, yep.
The only
Mr.
thing I
Mitchell.
would say is just, we should try to get them to have a time period, whether it's at least 7 days before, or, and I'm not saying we have to stick to that every time, but there should be a deadline, so it's not everyone is last minute.
Right.
'Cause once they know Lisa's gonna be signing, then that habit's gonna be starting where the event's on Friday night, and they're calling Lisa on Friday morning. So long as that doesn't continue, I understand once in a while you're gonna have examples like you said, but try to have and I don't know what that is, 7 days or something.
Well, it's going to have to be 2 weeks if we meet
Well,
bi-weekly.
You're right, Kenny, to be
Yeah,
respectful
just
of
something.
Lisa's time.
Yeah, just so
because-
it's not
You're right,
last
because I
minute.
could see a lot of last-minute situations, and, if Lisa, God forbid's got a day off, and then it's like a whole fire drill, and.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, or maybe in that special legislation, say, you can delegate, the town administrator can delegate to the chair of the Board of Selectmen to sign off as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that way there's a two-person process.
I like
So
that
I have a
idea.
motion and second. Any other further discussion? No? All in favor? 5-0. All right. The next item on the agenda is to review a proposal for codification services. Ms. Green?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. A little while back, there was some discussion regarding the status of and condition of our bylaws and zoning bylaws, and thinking about possibly having a company come in and codify them, update them, index them, and put them on the website so that they're very easy to find and navigate and things like that. So I reached out to General Code, which is a company that I worked with in my former employer. They're very, very good. I was absolutely pleased with the work that they put forward. I worked with them in what they do is they take our bylaws as we have them, and they include a legal analysis of the language, the wording of every single bylaw. They check it for compliance with state law and wording as well. What they do with that is they put it into a very nice package with all of their suggestions and questions. They send it back to us in a very thick book that's about the size of a dictionary that we go through and review every single bylaw, look at every suggestion. And at the end of this process, we will have bylaws that our language is correct. There's no question, there's no guessing, there's no, a dead end, so to speak. I've seen some bylaws, zoning especially, where it kind of directs you somewhere and you get there and there's nothing there. So it's anybody's guess as what that means. So this codification will address all of that. And zoning is one of the biggest culprits of crazy language that you read and you don't understand where they were coming from, or, again, it leads you to a dead end. They came in with a proposal of under $10,000, so we can use our best judgment as far as procurement. I have worked with this company, so I know exactly how they work, how responsive they are. They set up a schedule. This is probably a 2-year process that we will set a goal to meet the 2023 annual town meeting, because this will all have to go through our annual town meeting for adoption. Once the process is complete, they also offer a service called E-Code, which keeps our online bylaws up to date. So in our hard copies. Anytime we update a bylaw, implement a new bylaw, rescind an old bylaw, the town clerk, she sends it to the Attorney General, they approve it, we get it back. We send it off to General Code, they will upload it, they'll check it for language, they'll upload it and put it where it's supposed to be. So all of our bylaws and zoning bylaws will be right up to date. So we won't have to worry about that, they take care of this with the service. Of course, for the update, for the service, there is a yearly annual fee for that. But it's well worth it because, again, it keeps everything up to date and very easy for residents to navigate the code, the bylaws once they're online. I mean, I understand they're online now, but they will be indexed and very easy to navigate once they're done.
So, nope, I think that this would be a great thing for the town of Hanson to move forward on. If anyone has gone onto our town website, all our bylaws are in kind of different sections, different links that you have to click on. And you can't even do a control find and try to find anything because it's just a scanned PDF. So I think that this would be a great service to everyone where you can just go online, it's updated, it's secure. I just have one question, Ms. Green. A couple weeks ago, we talked about bylaw review committee for zoning and just general bylaw review. How do you see Code 1 working with these two committees?
Well, what they'll do, they'll probably work through me, and once they complete their legal analysis of these, they will send me a copy, which I will separate zoning and bylaw, and I will give to each committee. Now, that will be up to the committees, how they want to proceed, because it's a long process going through their suggestions and revisions and things. It took me months and months and months to do it. So the committees would have to decide how they wanted to proceed with that, if they wanted to take on that job, or if they wanted me to take on the initial review and then present it to each board so that they can review it and then determine which direction they want to go into. So it would be that kind of a process, or if anybody has any other suggestions on the bylaw,
No, I think that makes sense, but I will say that I did get a couple of questions about this, because people were like, wait, you've got two bylaw committees, like enough was to, one was enough to freeze people in their tracks. So the zoning bylaw committee, the primary lens for creating that and that they'd be looking through right now would be the Main Street, the economic development piece. So I think things could happen in parallel where this codification service is going to go through and look at existing stuff and say, look, you guys are out of whack with what the state says about this, or, or gee, you've got things that are conflicting, or like Lisa said, dead ends. So there'll be like that cleanup, but I think that the zoning bylaw committee is going to sort of look at what we've got, not through the lens of, oh, does it comply with the, existing regulations and what have you, but what's the feedback that we've gotten from people that are trying to locate businesses here? What are the things we run into all of the time, like as ZBA or planning, where we go, oh, here we are again, where we can't seem to get a clear answer on what that means, and we're left to kind of interpret it on our own. So I can see those two things running in parallel. I think that the zoning bylaw committee itself, really, it doesn't make sense to start meeting in any material way until this exercise is done. But I think the zoning bylaw, just because we've got that dictate through the consultant and for the economic development stuff, it's kind of got to start meeting earlier. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the way I see it, but.
Great. Any other comments from the board?
Yep, I do.
Mr. Mitchell.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there's been some talks about possibly changing the name of this board from Selectmen to Select Board. If this board decides to do that and create an article and go to town meeting and do that, there's a lot of bylaws that would have to be changed as a result of that. Where we're the appointing authority, it says Selectmen, that would have to be changed to Select Board. So if that's something that we're gonna entertain, does this company do anything like that? And should we tie that all into one? Because that would be a lot of work if we did get to that point to do that and change all of that.
Well, I will say, that's a really easy fix. You do, yep, you do a control find in the Word document, and you just type in, search for the word Selectmen, replace with Select Board.
On all the bylaws?
But they
Yeah, and then it
do a
will-
gender, they put in their proposal that they do a gender neutral.
Absolutely.
Replacement,
And,
yeah.
Okay.
again, in my former employment, when I was reviewing some of their suggestions, we made sure we addressed any gender specific, you know, if they had he, or she, we made sure they put he or she, or,
That's
you know,
part of what they would do anyways?
they put that in there, but it would be up to us to kind of point it out to in certain areas.
Okay.
But yes, that's something that my eye catches, and, because they leave a box that you can make additional suggestions, and anything that would have any type of gender or whatever, you look at what it is, and then put the suggestion to, you know, get rid of the gender in it and replace it with this wording, or if you ask them to suggest something, they will come back with a suggestion on how you can reword something if gender is a question.
I had a question. You mentioned an annual fee. Do we know how much that, I didn't?
Yes, it's in the proposal, it's $11.95.
Okay, and the length of the contract would be entering into with them, I can see would be hamstrung, because once we start working with them, it would probably be difficult to
The,
remove ourselves, but,
the average timeframe for something like this is 2 years.
no, not for the, I'm sorry, I should have been clear. So once we entered the contract for them to do this work, I get that it's a process, and then some. But are we required to enter into like a 10-year contract with that annual fee? Or is it just we engage them for this initial work, and then we enter into a separate contract for that additional annual fee? How does it work?
Let's see. Good question.
Well, you can get back to, I mean, it's not gonna really
Yeah,
change, but I just was
Let's
curious.
see.
Can you send that to us too, Lisa?
This here?
Yeah.
Oh, everybody should have a copy.
Did you have it?
It-
Okay.
It's right
in
there,
your
right,
package,
it's
yeah.
actually right there.
Okay. Quick.
Yeah, I mean, in the ongoing services where it talks about the E-code, it doesn't really say what the length of a contract is, it just says it's a recurring annual fee.
Maybe it's an annual re-up every year. When we send the fee, you're just, you know.
Yeah, and like I said, it covers any type of, the web hosting, the updating of any new legislation, you know, just checking the language for codes, and then as the years go on and they really make big changes, it covers that. So it's worth it to keep all the work that we've just done up to date going forward.
Definitely.
But I will definitely ask the question if there's a minimum and a maximum on the contract.
So I guess my question with the ongoing services is, what is exactly that, what's your understanding of the threshold for that? So if we have something, we've had some pretty big zoning changes come into play, whether it be with marijuana establishments in the various forms, things like that, that cut across a couple different bylaws, just in general. Would that be covered, to your knowledge right now, under the annual maintenance fee? Or would there be a typical threshold in which they would start charging us more based on the amount of workload, depending on how much we give them at one point?
Hold on, let me just,
Says see page 24 for the,
Yeah, right here.
I think they, that. Okay, so delivery materials, online copies.
they don't really outline that it's an additional fee, but it seems to be implied since it's not part of their annual maintenance.
Hold on. Where's the little box?
So it's right here.
Okay,
Optional components, they're optional, and then you
yeah.
have your
So,
different ones.
on, let's see, on page 9, there is a chart of what the E-code 360 covers. So it will cover new laws, easy flexible searching, dynamic table contents, email and shared links, printing, bookmarking searches, archive view, sticky table headers, administrative tools, translate the eCode 360 search app, linked to new laws, public and private notes, sample legislation. You could download to Word, download to PDF, new laws indicator, advanced search, customized titles, alert, and public document module.
Okay, but so to Mr.
so-
Weeks's point, I think the key in that would be, how are they defining new laws, which is capital N, capital L? It might be defined in the, like, the, whatever the body of the thing is, I'm not sure we've got the whole thing. I would presume they are defining that as new state laws, and not, I don't see how they could even price this, to
Right.
Joe's point, you know, to contemplate every single law a town might make in any given year.
I completely understand. I will definitely reach out to them and get an answer to that
I
question.
think it might make sense because, we have the October and the May town meetings where there's a lot of bylaw changes that come out of those typically. And I'd like to be able to budget, realistically, if we have to make those changes, because you never know what's coming down the pike.
Exactly.
So just be mindful of that.
I will definitely reach out and get an answer to that question.
Great. Ms. Green, was there a certain outcome that you were hoping from the board tonight on this?
Just, if the board supports this and if it is inclined to move forward, we would put an article together for the October town meeting
mean,
to
yeah.
approve this expenditure.
So moved. I think, I don't think there's much of a discussion, at least I haven't heard much of a discussion about the initial project and getting that all taken care of for the price of under $10,000, which seems quite reasonable. I think what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling is, what's the gotcha going forward? And can we just size it? Maybe it isn't, that huge, but, do they charge by bylaw that we change? Is there a certain amount of work that they do? So above that $11.95 per year, what are the additional fees? I think we just want to be informed so that we know.
Absolutely.
But to Joe's point, if it's reasonable, then we just budget for it, and it just becomes part of our cadence going forward at town meeting.
Right, and I will make sure I get clarification on the question and find out exactly what's the cost is going forward once the project's complete and we're into the maintenance mode, so to speak.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? 5-0.
Okay, so
Again,
an
just to
article
clarify,
together.
to do this.
To place it on the.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So, to place it onto town meeting. All right, next on the list is interview economic development committee candidate, Caitlin Fisher. Is she here tonight?
I do not see Caitlin.
All right, if she comes in at some point in the evening, we can jump back to this. But if not, did we hear from Ms. Fisher at all, Ms. Getson?
Yes, she was told a later time to come in because the executive session
Was up top?
got bumped.
Okay, so, yep, so if she comes in later on tonight,
should be
we
coming
can
in.
jump back to that.
Yeah.
So with that being said, moving on to accept June donations. So I'll just read those out real quick. So we have a few donations to the 200th anniversary committee, or well, one donation to the anniversary committee. We have a cultural council reimbursement to the library and several donations to recreation. So thank you very much to everyone who has donated to the town, CS, whoever that may be, Kemet Electric, Ferries Automotive, and Indian Head Water Transportation. Thank you very much for your support. So I'll make a
So moved.
motion. Second, all in favor?
And I'm just recusing myself. I don't think I have to, but just.
Just to be on the
out of
safe
an
side?
abundance of caution.
Yep.
I don't,
All right. Donations 4-01, 401. So next on the list is appointments. To appoint heavy equipment operator, Ms. Green.
Yes, so we had last Thursday, we had interviewed 3 candidates for the highway heavy equipment operator position. One candidate basically was outstanding as far as qualifications, requirements as far as licenses that you need to have, the type of equipment that he had operated. And highly recommend Joseph Marcos be appointed by the board as the new heavy equipment operator for the highway department. He appears to be a very good fit for the town, and definitely made an impression on all of us with his really good sense of humor and work ethic.
Great.
So moved.
Moved,
Second.
seconded, all in favor? Perfect.
Welcome on board, Mr. Marcos.
Yes, welcome. And the next item on for appointments is to appoint IT director, subject to satisfactory salary negotiations and background checks. I kind of wanted to bring this to the board a little bit premature, just because we need to get things rolling, and I didn't want to wait two more weeks. So with that being said, Lisa, myself, and Ryan, the former town IT director, he was nice enough to come in, and we did the interviews. We had 3 great candidates, and we came out with one final candidate, Mr. Stephen Morg, right?
Moberg.
Moberg. So he was the candidate of choice. It was great, and I just want to say thank you very much to Ryan for coming in and doing that with us. He had no obligation to, but he decided to come out and help us out again. Anything else I'm missing, Ms. Green?
He asked all the technical questions, just to gain a knowledge of the candidate's knowledge of IT. And he was speaking Greek, as far as we were concerned, but the candidates basically just rattled off the answers to his questions, and he just wanted to make sure that we were bringing in the best possible person for the job here in the town of Hanson, and I think we've made a good selection.
Perfect. Any further discussion?
Nope, so moved.
So moved?
Second.
Second?
Just discussion and full disclosure. I
Sure.
spoke with Beth today. As it turns out, Matt, this gentleman is my brother-in-law's wife's cousin.
Okay.
So there's no conflict of interest. So I'll vote along with the rest of the board. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think he's also
In
6
case.
degrees of separation
Yeah.
from Kevin Bacon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
Great, well, thank you very much for disclosing that, and all in favor?
Excellent.
5-0.
Yeah.
All right, and then the next appointment is, appoint to South Shore Regional Technical Vocational High School, Frank Mola?
Mola?
Mola.
Mola.
All right, do you mind just coming up to the podium real quick? And do you mind just stating your name and where you live?
My name is Francis Mola. I live at 125 Goldwyn Drive.
All right, great. And can you tell us why you're interested in being appointed to this position?
I've always been interested in the VOTEC. I wasn't lucky enough to go, but it's a great school. They do great things. And my daughter, Sienna, is starting there in the fall. She's already working out with the volleyball team, and I happened to stumble into the school committee meeting last week. And I met everyone, and I started talking to them, and it seemed like a great position, and they said they needed somebody from Hanson, so I thought I'd get involved.
The stars aligned.
Excellent. Any questions from the board?
No?
None, sign them up.
Great, well, moved?
Yes, move.
Second?
I second.
All right, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Oh, you're in, Frank.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good luck.
All right. Moving on to one-day liquor licenses, as printed on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye, 5-0. And requests by Dollars for Scholars to use the McQuon parking lot on September 11th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? No, all in favor? 5-0.
By the way, is that for electronic recycling?
Yes, it is.
All right, I was hoping.
Yes.
I got a few things I got to
Me too. Some old business, follow-up on mass housing grant. Ms. Green?
Yes, so at our last meeting, there was a question on grants from Mass Housing regarding testing the
Spring Street
Spring
property.
Street property that's right next to a landfill.
Yep.
So I did follow up with Mass Housing and then was directed to Mass Housing Partnership. And I did speak with someone today from Mass Housing Partnership and did find out there are grants out there, not exactly for ground pollution type of technical assistance. They did say that the developer is really responsible for having those type of studies, which are 21E studies done. However, what they can help us with technical assistance is when I explained what was going on with Hanson and the concerns, they did offer a civil engineering type of technical assistance that this person can guide both the developer and the zoning board of appeals through the process. And I like the way she describes it. They would be there to keep the developer in their lane and the zoning board of appeals in their lane. So this civil engineer sounds like a perfect fit for the challenges that Hanson is facing with this particular project. Fortunately, it's not competitive. You fill out the application, you get the grant.
Great.
So she did email me the application, which I got this afternoon. I will begin working on that tomorrow and get this in so that we can get this person on board. We do have some time as we were looking at when the next zoning board of appeals meetings were and this particular property coming up as an agenda item. So we have some time to get this person in place, get them caught up with everything, and start benefiting from this technical assistance.
Oh, great.
And,
And the grant, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
The grant will pay 100%, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's not, and it's non-competitive.
It is not competitive, no.
So that's
You
great.
apply and you get it, basically, and
Like that grant.
I asked her what we needed to do, she told me what we need to do, and I'm gonna put my writing skills to work tomorrow and get this submitted.
I feel good about that. Thank you for following up on that, Lisa.
Welcome, absolutely.
Great, so no further comments on that topic, correct? All right, moving on to execute highway director contract.
So actually,
Green.
Mr. Chair, we need to table that
Okay.
because we have not had executive session yet.
Oh, this is true, thank
Yes, we
you.
cannot do that until after.
All right, so
we're
that will
gonna
be
table
after.
that,
So thank you for catching me on that. And then how about providing us with a meal tax update?
Yes. So again, when this was first discussed, there was a question of possible potential costs to the local businesses if this were to be adopted by the town. I did call the DOR, Department of Revenue, Massachusetts, and spoke with somebody, an actual person there. And he explained to me that there should be no cost to businesses, or very little cost, depending on what type of software that they use for these taxes purposes. Once the town of Hanson adopts it, if we do adopt it at the October town meeting, the town clerk will send it in, the DOR will get the notice, the DOR generates all the notices to all the businesses in the zip code that's affected by it. And all they do is they go into whatever software they use and they increase the tax percentage. That's all they need to do. She said, some of the larger restaurants may have a company that does their software. It's just a matter of picking up the phone and saying, the town of Hanson has adopted the local meals tax. We need to increase the percentage that we collect by 3%. And that's it. So there's no cost. And a couple of good points on this. When residents of Hanson go to other towns to eat, whatever town they go in, they're contributing to that town's revenue source. It's time for Hanson to benefit from that when people come to restaurants within the town of Hanson, and we have some pretty great restaurants, or would any establishment that they come to from outside. It's time for our surrounding towns to contribute to Hanson's revenue source. But they can't do that until we adopt this tax,
And
sales
again,
tax.
Lisa, it's 75 cents for every $100.
Yes, it's a very, very small amount, and it doesn't stop people from going to other towns to eat out.
I
And
noticed
it's not going to
a,
stop people from coming to our town to eat
a
out.
restaurant in Whitman, and on their takeout menu, it said 6.25% tax plus 0.75 to the town of Whitman for a total of 7% tax.
Yeah, yep.
It said it right on the
Yep,
menu. I've never
yep,
noticed that
yep,
before.
yeah.
And I talked to another restaurant owner, when they implemented it in the town that he was, he said, we got a letter from the town. He goes, it wasn't a big deal. He goes, I literally went to my computer and just changed the tax setting, hit save, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yes,
That
and
was in
Kenny,
it.
that's,
He said it's
so
not a big
Lisa
deal.
had said that it's just
Yeah.
like a software, you just up the, I
Yeah,
feel
it's
very
part of the
comfortable.
POS system if you're
I
in
feel
the
very
restaurant
comfortable. I
business.
wanted the revenue anyway, but I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to place some undue wild burden on people.
Yeah,
But
he said
it
it
makes
wasn't a big
sense. They just tweak their little software and then they're good to go.
Right, yep.
So are you saying you would take out in Whitman?
Cannot disclose that. I was gonna have it in Hanson, but I couldn't contribute because there's no tax.
It's not just restaurants, it's taverns and bar establishments and, grocery stores that provide prepared meals and things like that. So, Hanson, like I said, we have about 19 establishments that would be able to start contributing to this revenue source, and.
So for instance, Shaw's has got all those little, like, I don't know, little prepared things, I've noticed since COVID, a lot of places have got stuff like that, more than ever before. So would those little prepared meals be subject? Okay,
Yes.
just wanted to, so that, it could really add up.
The fried chicken meals that you go and get and.
Yep, so
and
just
all
the
of
fried
that.
chicken meals and the prepared food.
The prepared, no,
Not-
right,
not-
not the roast
not-
groceries,
not your
right, just the
Cheerios
prepared
or anything
foods.
like that.
Yes, yes.
So,
It's the easiest way to say that.
Yeah, so if people go and get 20 lobsters for Christmas Eve or whatever, that's all included in the prepared foods. If they get them steamed, I guess.
Yes, if they get them
If they
thank
get
you,
them
yes.
steamed, then they're charged the tax.
Okay.
If they get them unsteamed, then not charged, but.
perfect. Great. Any other questions for the meal tax? Nope. And no comments from the audience? So with that being said,
I thought we already adopted
yeah,
it.
I think we just
Yeah,
wanted,
just wanted to give an
Yeah.
update on that question, to get it out there for,
but I appreciate the,
Folks to hear.
the support. So, next on the agenda is to approve open session meeting minutes for January 12th, 2021.
So moved.
I mean, they're very dense, and I
Moved
have
and
to admit,
seconded.
I feel like I need to take the cobwebs out of my mind, and probably I'm gonna have to start replaying some of the meetings to make sure that they're accurate, but they seem like they are.
Yep, so thank you very much, Amanda,
Yeah.
right, that's doing this. So,
Moved and seconded.
moved and seconded, all in favor? And then one abstention? All right, 401, Greer. So, town administrator report, Lisa.
Okay, so, hold on just a moment. All right, just want to announce that we had a resignation on our Board of Assessors very recently, so we have a vacancy. Anyone who may be interested in being appointed, now because this person resigned not at the end of their term, the Board of Selectmen can appoint a member to fulfill the term of that vacancy. So if there's anyone interested, please reach out to the Board of Selectmen's office, and we can put that on an agenda.
Sitting
Is
in
that-
joint session.
That's what I was gonna say, it's jointly, right?
Joint
Because
se-
they're
yes.
another elected board,
Yes.
so, okay.
Yes, joint session, I'm sorry, I didn't put that on. And yesterday, Greer and I attended a bridge dedication for Mary Gret Lazo. It was over on County Road, just after the tracks, prior to Hanson Grain. So Mary was a Hanson resident. She passed away in December of 2018. She lived in Hanson since 1950, raised her children. She was a lifelong school teacher, and she actually was a member of 4-H, and then was a member of a lot of different committees and boards. She was actually named by the Whitman Hanson Express as Hanson Citizen of the Year in 2011. So we were there with State Representative Cutler and Senator Brady, who did the dedication. So each side of the road, you'll see the dedicated plaque for her. Very nice dedication. On this Thursday, we will be interviewing 2 candidates for the town planner position. I'll give you an update on that. Collective bargaining negotiation sessions are going well, proceeding forward with all the unions. We do have our second and third dates scheduled, so bargaining is moving right along, and we hope that we can come with agreements to all the unions so that we can put this on the October fall meeting. And also, the Plymouth County Beekeepers Association will be hosting a honey extraction workshop this Saturday at 9:30 in the morning at the Hanson Clubhouse, which is at 228 High Street. Anybody interested in how they collect honey from the bees, please feel free to join. Everyone is welcome. And that'll do it for today.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the updates. Any questions from the board? No? Committee reports. Mr. Weeks?
What do I have? Recreation Commission met yesterday. That was great. They bought some cots, which was fantastic, much needed. And they're putting together a playbook, which is actually really exciting. They're bringing back, really kind of streamlining the wedding process and getting things going there. It's actually really exciting. And they're looking at policies and procedures, trying to kind of tighten up some of the things that they're doing over there. So it's a really active commission right now. It's really exciting to see all the good things they're doing.
And how are our new members doing? Fitting in nicely?
Yes,
Yeah.
fit right in. They're
I'm
doing it
hearing good
very
things.
exciting.
Yeah.
A lot of lifeblood in there right now, and I think they've started contributing very quickly, and they've been doing a great job.
That's awesome.
Ms. Kennett?
Well, we got a lot going on. So the McQuon Reuse Committee, we met last week. We received 2 RFPs in response. Just to clarify for those of you that haven't been following the painstaking process of the McQuon Reuse, we went out to RFP for over 65 housing with the town retaining that property, because when we found out how little we could get to sell that property, and the fact that it was so close to the elementary school and the senior center and the library, we had decided we wanted to maintain control over it. So we RFP'd with all of these contingencies, like we want to lease it, it needs to be in keeping with the area, we want it to be over 65, and it was a Hail Mary, we really weren't sure anybody was gonna reply. We've had a lot of fits and starts because of our turnover in town administrator and planner, but I'm happy to report we finally did get 2 responses to it. One of which actually paid attention to what we put in the RFP, and the other one that completely whipped it out the window and apparently was responding to a different town. I will not name who's who. We will figure that out as we present it to you guys later. But, so where we're at on that is none of us had seen the RFPs until we met last week. John had kept them under lock and key. And we are each taking them home and kind of making comments, but I also mentioned to Lisa that I really very much wanted to hear from all of the land use boards and the building inspector and all those guys. Do you have any concerns with either of the proposals, but in particular the one that it seems like we may end up going with, even though we haven't voted? And so on the 2nd of August, we're gonna have a little department head quasi-department/board head meeting for those departments that would be involved in this to get their collective feedback. I know like planning board, I think last night just basically discussed it, and I'm sure the other groups will discuss it too. But we just want to make sure we're getting feedback and that, that the committee doesn't say, oh, we're into this one proposal, and then we find out like, water's got a huge issue with it, or Board of Health has got it. So we just want to try to be all-inclusive. After we get that feedback, we meet again as a committee. We'll then have a proposal that we're going to bring back to you guys and say, here's what we think the winning RFP is, here's what we're going to get out of it, here's our recommendations. One of the other things I should mention that we did ask for, and again, it was a Hail Mary, we really didn't think we were going to get it, was we asked, could you, we would give preference to any contractor that would work with us on building a senior center as part of that proposal in McQuon. And so one of them did, again, come back and say, sure, we would partner with you on trying to develop a senior center. Now, what that means in reality, dollars and cents and all that, we haven't worked any of that out. We've got the committee's going to be gathering our questions that we've got about the application, and then we'll circle back and meet with the realtors who have been working with us on the RFP. We intentionally left them out of our conversation last week because we wanted to have just a amongst ourselves conversation without them sort of influencing us or anything. So that's a lot going on there. And then we had an extremely productive Economic Development Committee meeting last night. Today, Lisa and I met with Phil Schaffing, who you guys all met before when he did the presentation about the grant. He's finalizing the ways that grant money will be used. Things like trying to find money to clean up the sidewalks down there, ways to help businesses in town market themselves better, and there's like 3 or 4 other little things. But that's all grant money that we're gonna get specialists in that field for free to help the town work on those projects. So more on that later. And then also, we really had a good discussion around next steps, and the committee is very committed to looking for ways to support businesses that are along that strip, and we know who they are, and encourage them to comply with the regulations and offer things like, for instance, one of the grants that Phil has suggested is called the facade grant, where it's literally a grant to help people put siding and just shape up that exterior of the building. And a lot of those, as you guys well know, need siding. They need facades. So more on that later, but that's kind of where we're at. I have to say, we're getting, a good cadence going, and the committee's very much looking forward to figuring out who our new member's going to be, so that we've got even more people to spread the wealth to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. For myself, Energy Committee, we met last week. We have been interviewing candidates or brokers for community aggregation. So at last town meeting, we discussed about maybe purchasing our electricity here in bulk. So we've been interviewing brokers per our requests to help out with that process. And we discussed a little bit more about the grant that we had received for green communities. So we were just talking about kicking that off as well. And we want to kind of review our policies that we made 10 years ago and kind of update them, because it's been 10 years and a lot has changed since then.
Not a bad idea.
So with the final Plymouth County Hospital Reuse Committee, we had reorganized last week, I believe it was, and we kind of have a new breath of life up there. So we're going to keep on moving forward. We're waiting on engineering plans, and so this way we can start planning. We'll start doing the fine tuning of the plans and hopefully have some articles for maybe this town meeting, I'm hoping, to start doing some of the infrastructure work. So other than that, that's all I have. Mr. Mitchell?
I have nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hickey?
Nothing from the 200. My lips are sealed. It's still too early, but it's going to be fantastic. That's all I can say about that. But what I do have, what I want to mention is that we have been celebrating Hanson's own lately. And this past Sunday, Hanson's own Nick Caffato was finally, because of COVID, was finally inducted to baseball's Hall of Fame. Absolutely, Joe. I'm very excited for the family. He was also recently honored by the Baseball Writers Association of America as the 2020 Career Excellent Award. And Corinne had asked me not to say anything more, except what a dream job for Nick to have, growing up here in Hanson and be able to write about the Red Sox. And, obviously, me being a sports nut, his articles are sorely missed. Great man, and definitely deserved the recognition. of being in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And now I'll have to go back. I was already there, but now I'm going to have to go back, and I just wanted to let everybody know that with, you know, everything that's going on lately, so.
That's awesome.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
Perfect, excellent. Well, thank you very much. Any other comments from the board for tonight?
Can I just make one little quick
Yes.
little thing? So Hanson Day is already, we've already got 22 people,
Oh, wow.
groups that have
Great.
reached out to us. But I'm just putting it out there. We're still looking for like Girl Scouts, 4-H, any other group, churches, et cetera, but we've got a really good representation so far. So, and it's early in the game. It's only like 2 weeks after we approved it being
Great.
on that day.
Excellent. And what day is that?
That is the 18th for the actual date, or the
18th of August?
25th as the rain date of September.
Of September, okay,
Yes.
perfect. Perfect. So if it's all right with you guys, just, don't give, if it's all right with you guys, what I would like to do is I just want to recess from our meeting real quick and just go into wage and personnel real quick, because I know Heather from Whitman Hanson Cable Access likes to record these meetings, and I feel that it will be quick, and then we'll be able to come back and do executive session, so that way Heather's not sitting there for an hour or however long we're in the executive session.
Absolutely.
And what time did we tell Ms. Fisher?
I believe I told her 7:30,
Okay, all right.
yeah.
So, all right, great. So if she comes in before we go into executive session, we'll put that on there as well.
Okay.
So, do I need a motion to move to recess and
So moved.
Second.
moved in second? All in favor? All right, and Mr. Weeks?
I can't find my agenda for the wage and personnel. It's only like 2 lines. The Town of Hanson Wage and Personnel Board, Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen Meeting Room, Tuesday, July 27th, 2021, at
7:30.
7:27. Call to order. All right, new business. Review, approve new highway groundskeeper job description, and discuss creating the new position. Lisa?
Okay, so this came about during our interviews for the heavy equipment operator. A candidate did come forward who brings in a really unique set of skills. Unfortunately, right now, did not possess all of the qualifications required for a heavy equipment operator. However, based on the specialized skills that he did present with, the idea came up with, our highway department has 4 workers. 4, that's it, for a town that has 63 square miles of roads.
Miles.
This person here, they talked about, if you have 2 working on roads, you have 2 trying to keep up with the landscaping of all of our town buildings. And they just don't have the time to do that. So we find that a lot of the buildings, there's overgrown weeds, things like that, because we just don't have the manpower. An idea was thrown around that if we brought this individual on board, our highway director did not had the money within his budget to fund an additional position. This person would come on board and focus on, and it's in the essential functions basically, would focus on landscape and grounds upkeep of all, except for the fire department, I understand they have somebody over there, but they would focus on, and Camp Kawani would be not included, except for if trees were involved, big trees. He wouldn't do big trees, but he'd focus on all municipal buildings and town-owned land, and just take care of all of the landscaping and maintenance. That would be, and that's a 40-hour-a-week job.
Easily.
And it's much needed, and they would be able to keep weeds and things like that from growing into the air conditioning units that cause issues with fans and things like that, and just keep the buildings in some type of attractive looking instead of having weeds all overgrown because we don't have the manpower. So this person actually has a lot of experience with how to prune trees. If there's branches that are loose, he knows how to take down branches with safety. And he works with all the equipment that deals with landscape that some of our highway people haven't worked with yet. He knows how to work a chipper and lawnmower, specialized mowers and things like that. So he comes with a lot of skills that really would benefit the town. He could also work over at the library, who currently hires a landscaper to do that job. Well, they wouldn't need to hire a landscaper because we'd already have one on staff. And if we've got somebody dedicated, that will give us 5 people, maybe, and 2 could go out with that. They could have 2 or 3 on the road. So we'd have people that could dedicate themselves to that. And I think it would be really beneficial to the town.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, just one thing about the job description itself. One thing I just kind of want to see in these job descriptions moving forward is just other duties assigned.
Just gonna say the same thing.
Just because I find that, not everyone, but there has been times where it's not in my job description. So I think having that a little open-ended, I think, will help us out in the long run. And then also too, I just want to make sure that we're not creating a position just for one individual. Is this going to be out posted as well? And
It would not be posted because this individual comes with the qualifications that fit this job description. We have talked about it with the union as far as what their expectations were, and I don't want to divulge that right now, but the union has no issues with this particular position. And it was created because of the specialized skills and experience this individual brings to the town. He is a Hanson resident.
I feel very conflicted knowing that. So I recognize the need for us to have somebody do that. It doesn't feel right to me to create a position for, as specialized as this man skill, or person, I don't even know if it's a man, doesn't matter. This person's skills are, why wouldn't we post it? I mean, what's the downside of posting it, which I think is the right thing to do?
I don't think there's a downside to posting it. It would just cost us money to post it again, to put it in the newspaper and things like that, and a lot of time that we'd go through again, only to probably bring on the same person.
I get that, but I mean, is anybody else concerned about the optics of?
Right,
Yeah.
that's why I asked the question, is I just
Yeah.
want to make sure, we as the town, we're held to the highest level of purity, in a sense. And, I just want to make sure that the optics aren't there that, oh, well, hey, this guy came in, we want to employ him, we're going to create a position for him. So I know that there are people out there, keyboard warriors especially, that will take this and they'll, I think it's just the right thing to post it for 2 weeks. And I think that's plenty of time to then move forward.
And do we have the money for this? And is this part of our overall plan? I just, again, I don't, I am thrilled that you're thinking like this, that you're working with the highway, that, I'm thrilled. I can't even express adequately how thrilled I am to not have the same old, and have somebody thinking outside of the box. But I just want to make sure, Kenny had brought up, I don't know, say a month ago or so, when we were talking about the building inspector, that we need a full-time building inspector. And I want to make, and to me, as important as this is, getting a full-time enforcement position is a million times more important than this. But I'm just one vote, I'm just one person, but, now, I'm not saying they have to be mutually exclusive. If you tell me that these are sustainable and we're gonna save enough money having this guy, and in fact, even the enforcement position, I think you could make an argument that with, fines, et cetera, and follow-up, that might end up being more self-sustaining than it is right now. But have we checked it by Todd?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Jameson has had a conversation with Todd. Again, he's not asking for any extra money. He has money within his budget already
Okay.
that he can work around to bring this position in. So he's not asking for any extra money for it. He already has it in his budget. He already has worked with Todd. who again says he has the money within his budget for this position. This person wouldn't be coming in until late August, so he's able to move money around within his budget and not ask for any additional money for this position. So Todd has cleared it, and he's okay with it.
Jim and Kenny both had some. Jim, you're first, Kenny after.
Thanks, Joe. My question was, I thought you said that at the beginning, Lisa, there's only 4 guys in the highway department out on the street working.
Right.
And that there wasn't room for a 5th because of the budget. Did I hear you wrong, or is that what you said?
No, there is room in the highway budget.
And why aren't we just
Yeah.
hiring a 5th
Bingo.
person at the highway? If there's room in the budget, why aren't we just hiring them? Job description is one thing, but
Jim's 100% right. You know, you're creating a position that should be part of the highway department. The highway department is down manpower. So what they should be, if we can afford it, then we should be hiring a position over there. What is our weed picker?
This position is in the highway department. This is gonna be a highway person.
Okay, that's gonna do
employee.
all the same,
Yeah, I mean, they're still gonna do snow and ice.
Okay.
They're, you know, they'll still be with that, and if they're not doing landscaping, they'll be doing other, helping the employees clean, maintain, secure all the equipment. So he's gonna be a public highway employee, but his focus will be on the grounds of the town.
and what is he, so in the winter, what is he gonna do in the winter? Because there's obviously no
Snow and
weeds
ice,
and trees.
There's trees that come down in the winter, he will do that, and whatever else needs to be done. I mean, he has the skills and
I still
ability.
think adding them to the highway department as a regular highway employee is the right way to go instead of creating another position. You know,
And-
building maintenance, if we're gonna create another position, I think we should have a building maintenance guy to go around all these buildings before they all fall in, before we need a landscaper. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, I just wanted to put out there, that's the thought that they had for this position with the highway
Okay,
department.
and-
I mean, they only have 4 people, so they thought this might be a good addition with having somebody.
Yeah, I think hire a guy for highway is fine, but
Yep.
taking those duties and put it within highway, not just one guy picking weeds.
Oh, these are within the skilled labor position, which is already a PW7 with the highway. This position outlines and adds the grounds maintenance and landscaping.
Laura, you.
It's already
so
under
that's-
skilled labor.
So
That's
Lisa, I'm trying to, building on what these guys are saying is there some way that we
Need more
can
information.
use the existing opening that, you know, the same job description,
Right.
and then it just, fine, I mean, however Jamison chooses to use these people, you know, because he's supervising them, that's totally up to him, and if he decides that this gentleman is gonna, you know, focus on X, Y, or Z, are there union concerns with doing that and differentiating? I'm just trying to figure out where we're going, why we're going this
The
way.
union, the union has been in discussions with this, and they have no problems with this at all. Both the union steward and assistant union steward have talked about this position. They've talked about it with other members, and none of them have any issues with this particular position.
And I could say something, and I'm not going to, why a union member would agree to someone else landscaping or
'Cause he doesn't have
mowing
to do it.
lawns when it's 95 degrees out. But if we have the money, we have the position, they only have 4 guys, I get that, they need another guy because they don't have time to do this stuff, but I'm not in for hiring somebody secretly, like Laura had mentioned earlier. It's gotta go out there, you know.
Put a
And
regular ad out like the one they just had when they hired the heavy equipment
it's a
guy.
regular position.
Put it
when-
out.
I'm sorry, Joe.
it's fine.
It's a regular position. Highlight, or your main focus in the spring, summer, and fall is landscaping.
Yep.
In the winter, you're one of the 4, now 5. But it keeps, you know, the landscaping, that's your main objective. There's definitely more than
Right.
40 hours a
In
week.
the winter, you're gonna be up
But-
all night plowing snow.
Right, again, Kenny, I agree with you. You know, we need somebody to take care of these buildings.
I totally agree. I'd like to go down the path of rolling this into more of a formal position within the highway department, because it makes the most sense that way, but at the same time, optics aside, we either have a process and a policy or we don't. Any position should be posted for the public regardless, and I think that has to be the standard. I'm not worried about who says what out there, and it doesn't matter. In fact, most of the time, that's what keeps us honest. The idea is that we have a policy, we don't have a policy. So any job description that gets posted should be posted for at least 2 weeks. And I think that should be the standard that's set, in my opinion.
No, I agree, but then I think to like Kenny's and Jim's point, like, are we, I hesitate because I feel like we're looking at this in isolation, and like, our job is to look more holistically at the overall needs of the town. And although I have no doubt that Jameson needs this help and that they're down people, you know, where does it fall in terms of priorities? And, you know, we've only got so much money, we have to balance things, you know, in terms of building inspector versus like maintenance, you know, help versus, you know, so I feel like we're sort of like putting on blinders and just looking at this one job, and that makes me feel uncomfortable, because by virtue of moving forward with this, what are we potentially taking off the table that we haven't even thought about?
Nothing, because it's in the budget. We have to do it one at a time. If they need help with a landscaper, okay, let's get a landscaper in here. And we've talked about this before, Laura, and that's one of the things going through COVID in these meetings on Zoom and all that, we wanted to get someone in here to maintain these buildings,
Yes.
and we never did it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number two.
Okay.
Even though that may be more important, like Kenny said,
Yeah.
right now we have a problem, we're in the middle of the summer. You know, let's, one at a time, boom, get this done, okay, move on, are we budgeted for that, where can we, you know, get the money? But right now, this is an easy solve, because we know the money's in their budget already.
I'm fine with it, just as long as it's posted and it's a standard, like, there's no special treatment, you know, like
Do
just.
we know if this person has a CDL or a hydraulic license?
They don't have either, so that's why they're not a heavy equipment operator, it's a
Right, but
laborer.
but Lisa, what is he gonna do in the wintertime when it's 20 degrees? You can't
They-
pick weeds.
No,
you can plow.
he's going to
Tree.
work towards the CDL, but he does have the license that you can drive
Just a
the
regular
pickup truck with a plow on it. He just can't
pickups
drive
with
one of the
plows.
dump trucks.
Yeah, and I get that.
I want to go, we have a couple of folks that want to ask something.
You go around the two-wheel drive.
Once you hire this fifth person, does that mean you don't have to pay for our landscaping for the library? Because we take that money from state aid. That's taking money for not having additional children's programs, a variety of things. And we take the money from state aid to pay for the landscape work.
Yeah, Lisa just said that he would do your work.
You would do,
Yep.
okay.
The town-owned buildings and properties, that would be their
I
focus.
mean, because there's times I've mowed the lawn, this was years ago, because the lawn wasn't getting done.
You should apply.
Spreading the mulch, you name it. My husband and I and my son were doing it. He's graduated from college, so he's not doing that. Anyway,
I wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. You said the money you get from state aid, where you could buy children's books and other
we
books.
can have more children's programs. I mean, we do have quite a
That-
bit, but there's always new things coming along, like we had a donation recently.
That's insane.
We bought the STEM card, and we bought a lot of things based on donations. You know, like the Lozo Memorial Fund pays for a lot geared towards middle school. We have the in the middle book club, we have, the old computer room is now the in the middle room, geared towards just middle school students. So, you know, 3,000 that we spent this year goes a long way.
Well, if we're in a position to help out with that, that's another check in the box for
Yeah.
that. I guess my only question, tell me if we can't talk about this right now, but based on what Kenny, you were saying about what are they gonna do in the winter and what are the qualifications, we started off the conversation by this position being kind of tailored to this person based on their qualifications. What makes this position unique to this person that we couldn't find somewhere else or a more skilled person, where Kenny just listed off a whole bunch of stuff that he might not be able to, or they might not be able to do.
Let's see.
I just think open it up as a highway position. Highway absolutely needs another person, male or female. Open it up to another position
Yeah.
and do it the normal way we do it. This gentleman might be the best qualified, but I think when you're tailor making, that's just gonna be a nightmare.
I haven't heard
It'll-
anybody
it's-
disagree with that,
Yeah,
Kenny. I
it
think-
just, it sets a precedent too.
Yes.
And I don't think that's something we can make a decision on in 10 minutes, you know? I think that's,
Yeah, I don't disagree.
So he does hold whatever license is required. He's OSHA 10 certified. And that's including mechanical, preventative maintenance. He is qualified to work bobcats, chippers, mowers, backhoes, plowing with not the, whatever tonnage they did that you need a CDL with, but he can operate the one just down from that. He has experience with drainage, grading, stone and retaining walls, snow and ice. He grew up in Maine, so he knows snow and ice very well. Ornamental pruning of trees. He works and knows with bucket trucks. Safety as far as operation of a bucket truck, and then how to properly cut branches. And Kenny, you could probably speak to that, being in the tree business.
take his application.
Yeah, so he, he basically has those type of skill set that he could bring. He is going to work towards getting his CDL, and he is going to work towards any type of adaptable training for, whatever additional landscaping that he needs to get.
So he's probably a good fit, but he needs to be on the same playing field as everyone else.
Well, I mean, for the level for the unskilled labor, that's where he'd fall in. Because then they have heavy equipment operators. They have in that, let's see, hold on just one second. 'Cause they have the chart of the different, what it is. So they have, they have equipment operators, they have skilled laborer, they have heavy equipment operator. So from the heavy equipment operator up, that's where they require the CDLs and the hoisting license and things else. From the equipment operator and then to skilled laborer, unskilled laborer, those are the positions that don't require the CDL and the hoisting license. So he would be in the skilled laborer position, which doesn't right now require that, but he would work towards getting that.
I think everybody at the highway department, except for Jameson, has a CDL license and a hydraulic license. I mean, that's a basic requirement to work over there. I think we should explore it more before making decisions. It's my
What would you like to
opinion.
explore more, just more specifically,
Yeah,
so we can
and
throw it on
talk
the
to
agenda?
Jameson and see if we can just create a highway position. I would talk to Todd first, make sure we can afford it,
Yeah, no, he's done all that. I mean, actually, Jameson
seems to be
created
done,
this
yeah.
job
Okay.
description.
All right.
This job description that you have did come from Jameson.
Okay, but I think we're just saying it needs to be posted.
That's all.
Just needs to be posted.
Okay.
Yep, so it sounds like it's already wrapped up into the highway department. We already have the funds set
Mm-hmm.
aside for it. We can take this person on long-term if we need to.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a huge help to the town. It'd be a help to other departments as well. That's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for bringing that up, by the way. So really, what it comes down to is just echoing this. I think we should post it at least for
Okay.
2 weeks, and then we can come back to it. So the plan?
Yep.
Do we need a vote on that?
No, I don't
I
I
think
mean,
so.
isn't that
Just-
standard fare?
Yeah,
to,
you should be good to go, right?
Yeah,
We'll be
right,
creating
yeah.
that position.
Bring it back to Jameson.
Well, do we need a vote to create the position?
Right. So I'll make a motion to create it, I guess.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to create this position of skilled laborer, PW7 in the highway department.
Well, are we creating the position or adding the position to highway?
Can I,
Well,
I'm
it
sorry.
doesn't, well, if you don't want, if you don't want to accept that, the essential functions, just focusing on the landscaping and grounds, we'd just be adding a position.
Okay.
All right, so the agenda says review and approve new highway groundskeeper job description. does not say create a new position.
When,
So, yeah, no,
I'm sorry,
No, go
Mr.
ahead, go
Chair.
ahead. No, absolutely, go ahead.
I'm thinking that Kenny might have the answer
Yeah.
to this. Are we, and I thought you said this earlier, are we down a position or two in highway?
The highway's definitely down, absolutely.
Okay.
Manpower.
We don't have to create it. They're down, but they had 6 guys
Right,
on the
what we need to
street.
do is talk to Jamison and have him create the position so this person or whoever gets a job can go right in and do the same duties.
Right, but what I'm asking Kenny is, let's say 5 years ago, how many guys were on the street? 5, 6?
In the seventies, they had 15 people.
Well, I don't want to go to the 70s, 5 or 6 years. You know, when you first
Yeah,
became
probably-
a selectman
Probably 5.
in the early 90s,
Much less than
we had 5.
You're
So
definitely
we're-
down a guy.
Then let's go to Jameson with that we're missing at least one, if not two.
I just want to make sure that this position is gonna fill all of his needs, not just picking weeds.
Right.
That's all, and I'm
Right.
fine with it.
What's the procedure if you don't fill people that leave and it's vacant for so long that you've got to then revisit? I don't know what that procedure is.
Yeah, that's
Is
it.
that technically an ad, or is it just a resuscitation of a zombie
Don't let
position?
Matt
I don't
speak.
know.
Don't let Matt
I
speak.
think we should have
We
Jameson
had that
come in and talk to
problem-
us.
I'm sorry, Kenny, we had that problem in Camp Kawani. Jack King, God rest his soul, was the caretaker up there and got sick. That position was never filled. Even after Jack passed away, that position was still never filled. They just seemed to go away.
Yeah, so that actually creates another question, but Matt, go ahead.
Well, I just was gonna say, you know, this job description came from Jameson.
It came from James.
And Jameson didn't say, oh, well, I have something else that I want, but I'm gonna give this to you because this is what you wanted. He came to you and said, here it is, this is what I want. Is that true?
Right.
So,
We talked about, where the need is, basically where the need is. And he took a job description for a skilled laborer, and he included and added the essential functions that would show that, instead of just coming on as a skilled laborer that can just do anything that they call for, this person would be dedicated to the town building landscape and grounds maintenance. I don't know the semantics of how, if you just bring them on as a skilled laborer, with a job description, they're just coming as a skilled laborer. And it's hard to describe. It's really hard to find. I mean, he wants somebody to know, he wants that position to be just somebody who knows 5 days a week, unless there's a tree down or a storm, they're gonna be working at all the buildings in the town and doing all the landscaping for the buildings. 5 days a week. They're gonna mow the grass at the hospital, here, the town fields. I mean, that would be, and he'll always be working with somebody else, because Janice has said he never sends one person out, there's always 2. But that one person will always be on that team. It'll be him and then one other worker. So it won't be 2 separate workers doing landscaping and he'll be doing something else. That one person will always know that's what he's gonna do. So every day, he'll have a plan of what building or what area he's gonna hit, and then he'll have a team member with him, and they will work on that, those buildings for that day. So that's all, that will be how their schedule will work out. But if you just bring them on as a skilled laborer, just with a myriad of functions, it could go either way. But this way, with this job description for this person, they're gonna know that's what they do, 40 hours a week, 5 days a week. And they can make out the plan, and whoever joins him that day, this is what we're doing, this is the building we're doing, this is what needs to be done, this is how we're gonna do it, and the work gets done.
So a couple more questions. I promise I'll be brief, because this is my first time going through something like this.
Mine too.
So, and I want to make sure that whatever votes we take are actually valid, I guess, is what's in our authority to do versus what we're going to find out after we take a vote that we didn't have the authority to do it, right? Creating a new position. We have the authority to actually create a new FTE for a new position within this committee right here, because that's what the conversation is turning into.
Under the Wage and Personnel Committee,
Yep.
Board, you have the authority to do that.
And so we vote to add an FTE per Jameson's request. approve this job description, if this individual ends up getting that CDL, which bumps him up that ladder, is that a renegotiation, a changing of that job description, and therefore changing the essence of what we're doing here?
Well, if they get a CDL later on down the line, they're still in this position here.
Yeah.
It just increases the qualifications. So if another position opens up that he would have to have a CDL for, he could move up on that. So, but that would mean somebody would have to leave or retire. Since you've got
As
such a small
opposed to-
staff, and then you'd go through all the union requirements on the contract.
So what is on our agenda tonight to discuss? I just
It
want to
says,
level set.
Review, approve the new highway groundskeeper job description and discuss creating a new position.
All right,
Which
so
I think is what we're doing.
we could discuss we could approve the job description, but it doesn't mean that we're saying just put this guy into it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I really,
Yeah.
I really want to piggyback off what Kenny's been saying this whole time, which is we really want to get a little
So-
bit more information.
Yeah, so we can post it in the Express.
Yep.
In the Express, and we can post it on the website, and then we'll collect out applications and resumes, and we'll interview for the process, and this person will be part of that interviewing process.
So I think if everyone feels comfortable, can we get a motion to approve the job description with the amendments of, I forget what the wording you would use, but and all other
duties as
essential duties as
described.
assigned?
And then also to Ken's point, I am tripping up, Kenny, on what you said, because, no, what's he gonna do when it's not?
What if he doesn't get a CDL?
Yeah.
And then,
Then
so
he
what is he
stays-
doing, what is he doing in the
stays in
winter?
this position.
Right.
Oh, he can come here and blow off the parking lot and pick weeds, like, what is he gonna do?
Is this-
It needs
is-
to be wrapped in as part of the highway.
Could we possibly
I
have
would
a
like
co-
to have Jameson come
That's
in
what I
and
was
talk
just
to
gonna
us
say. Yep.
and sell us on why he needs this.
So you're
If not,
thinking-
I'm not gonna vote on it, you guys can move forward, I'm only 20% of a vote.
So you think, well, I mean, you're the one
I
that's
don't
probably
have enough
closest tied to this.
information on it tonight to do anything with it.
So would you
But
make a
guys-
recommendation to table it until we get more information from Jason?
Until we can get
That's what I would
Jameson.
prefer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make the motion.
Yep. Well, we don't need a vote on it, we can just,
No, just agree
Just
that
table it.
we're
yeah,
not
we'll just
taking a
have
vote on
Jameson
this,
come in
and we'd
and
like
talk
to
to
have
us.
Jameson
And
come.
explain what exactly is he trying to accomplish. And the other thing is, we should have something from the union saying that they agree to these terms. Because as soon as that kid comes out and starts up a weed whacker, oh, wait a minute, then the stuff hits the fan. So
No.
it's not
Points
something
duly
that we
noted.
can do in 10 minutes.
So we'll table this until next time, and please invite Jameson.
Jameson in and get more information.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start this meeting at 4 in the afternoon,
I know, right?
since we spent a half hour and got nothing
I was gonna say,
accomplished.
we just spent,
Your fault.
last week it took me 2 minutes.
And
This
I
week-
loved you last week.
I know, now.
This week,
It's unbelievable. I know, seriously, right? So with no other business, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, 5-0. We're adjourned.
Had not shown up for the Economic Development Committee.
She's not outside, is she? Do you want me to look?
Yeah,
Her name escapes me. What's her name?
Kate. No, okay. All right, with that being said, does the board feel comfortable, what's the will of the board, I guess?
Well, if she confirmed that she was going to come,
She did.
did we get anything from her saying she couldn't make it tonight after she confirmed that? Okay.
All right, so with that being said, it sounds like you want to move forward with this.
I think we move forward with
We
it.
I mean, I
absolutely,
did want to move forward, and we do have a good candidate, but we did already appoint him to one committee, and I kind of was thinking, I'd like to spread the wealth, but if we don't have her in front of us, then,
Right.
you know.
we've had her on 2 different agendas.
Well, she didn't know about the last agenda.
Oh,
That
okay.
wasn't on her, that was,
Okay.
yeah.
So, so with that being said, I'll look for a motion to appoint Ken
Sweezy.
Sweezy to the Economic Development Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 5-0, thank you very much.
Thanks, sorry to torture you, like, I mean,
And don't forget to get sworn in with the town clerk.
Good point.
So.
Yeah, for both appointments.
I believe
Yeah.
she'll send you a letter, and then once you get the letter, come on down to Town Hall, and she'll swear you in, and go from there. Thank you very much for volunteering. With that being said, I am looking for a motion to enter into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, to wit, police, fire, clerical, and highway unions, to also to discuss with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open session may have a detrimental effect on bargaining or litigation position of the public body, the chair so declares, to wit, the highway union.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call vote. Mr. Weeks? Ms.
Aye.
Kemet? Matt Dyer, aye.
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 Great, perfect. We are now in executive session. Thank you.